Okay, so let's dive right in. For the longest time, the first real economists were totally stumped by this simple, almost childish puzzle about value. It was a question so fundamental that it really called into question everything they thought they knew about why things are worth what they are. And here it is. You've probably heard of it. Adam Smith's famous diamond water paradox. I mean, it seems completely backward, doesn't it? Water is absolutely essential for survival, yet it costs almost nothing. A diamond? It serves no real purpose, but it can cost a king's ransom. How could this possibly make any sense? So the old school answer was something called the labor theory of value. The idea was super simple. A thing's value comes from all the hard work that went into it. But this idea just falls apart pretty fast when you really look at it. I mean, think about it. Imagine two restaurant owners. Both of them work incredibly hard, pulling 80-hour weeks, equal labor. But one restaurant is a smash hit, lines out the door, and the other one's a ghost town. If labor created the value, why did one succeed and the other fail? Clearly, something else had to be going on. And that something else, well, it came from a group of thinkers around 1870. We call them the Marginalists. And what's really interesting is that a lot of these guys came from physics and engineering backgrounds. So they brought this whole new scientific precision to economics, taking ideas like equilibrium and calculus and applying them to human behavior. Their whole big idea was what they called thinking on the margin. And it's simple, really. It means forgetting the total amount, forgetting the average, and just focusing on the value of the next one. The next ride at the amusement park, the next hour of work, the next product off the assembly line. You see, a salaried worker has a totally different incentive than someone paid by the hour, all because the value of that next hour is calculated differently. This shift in focus changed absolutely everything. One of the big names here was William Stanley Jevons, and he basically said, look, that old labor theory, it's just plain wrong. Value, he argued, doesn't come from labor at all. Nope, it comes from utility. The satisfaction, the pleasure, the happiness you get from something. And this is just a brilliant way to explain his core idea, the law of diminishing marginal utility. Picture this. It's a hot day, and you get that first ice cream cone. Oh man, pure bliss. The second one? Yeah, still pretty good. But the third? Uh-oh, you're kind of pushing it. And by the fourth cone? Total mistake. A terrible, terrible idea. See? The more you have of something, the less utility or happiness you get from the next one. So here's the kicker. This one simple idea of diminishing marginal utility, it completely solves Adam Smith's paradox. It wasn't about labor at all. It was all about how useful something is, combined with how much of it there is to go around. This chart just lays it out perfectly. The total utility of water is, well, it's infinite, right? You literally need it to live. But its marginal utility, the value of one more glass, it's basically zero because for most of us, it's everywhere. And diamonds? They're the exact opposite. Their total utility is pretty low. It's just a shiny rock. But because they're so incredibly scarce, the marginal utility of getting just one more is huge. So value doesn't come from total usefulness. It comes from usefulness at the margin. So you've got all these amazing new ideas floating around. Utility, scarcity, thinking on the margin. But it took one guy, Alfred Marshall, to pull all these revolutionary parts together and build them into a single, powerful machine that honestly still defines modern economics. The great economist John Maynard Keynes put it so well. He said Jevons was like a kid who saw a kettle boil and shouted with joy. He saw the aha moment, the potential. But Marshall also saw the kettle boil, and then he sat down silently to build an engine. He wasn't just pointing at the discovery. He was the master engineer, meticulously building the system that would put it all to work. And here it is. This is that engine, the supply and demand model that's still the foundation of Econ 101 today. See, Marshall realized that value wasn't just about utility in our demand for things. It was also about the cost to make them, the supply. The demand side, that's all about marginal utility, just like Jevons said. But the supply side, that's all about marginal cost, what it costs to produce just one more unit. Marshall used this absolutely brilliant analogy to explain his breakthrough. He asked, when you cut a piece of paper with scissors, which blade is actually doing the cutting? The top one or the bottom one? The question is ridiculous, right? You need both. And he said that's exactly what value is like. It's pointless to argue whether value comes from utility or from cost. from demand or from supply. It is the intersection of both working together that determines the true value of anything. You just can't separate them. And Marshall, he didn't even stop there. He basically built the entire vocabulary of modern microeconomics. Things like elasticity, the difference between fixed and marginal costs, thinking about the short run versus the long run. Even this idea of external economies, why tech companies all cluster in Silicon Valley to feed off each other. All of these foundational concepts came right out of Marshall's engine. But here's what's so important to understand about Marshall. For him, this wasn't just some cold mathematical game. He saw economics as something way deeper, a way to understand people and all the forces that shape our lives. I mean, the very first sentence of his masterpiece, Principles of Economics, says it all. He believed our character is literally forged by what we do every single day, whether we're at a desk, on a farm, or building a wall. For Marshall, economics wasn't just about money. It was about understanding humanity, especially what shapes the lives of the poor.
And yet, get this. This masterpiece took him an agonizing 20 years to publish. He was a notorious perfectionist, apparently because of a really controlling father, and he had what his biographers called a pathological fear of making mistakes. So he had all these revolutionary ideas way early on, but he just couldn't bring himself to put them out there until he was absolutely sure they were perfect. And it's that really meticulous, patient approach to his work that shaped his final, profound warning for us. It's a thought about the danger of impatience, and honestly, it feels incredibly relevant today. Marshall's point here is subtle, but it's so powerful. Think about it. He spent 2 decades perfecting his engine because he knew that value and progress are these incredibly complex systems. He saw that, yeah, apathy is evil, but so is what he called impatient insincerity. Rushing to solve huge problems with simple, dramatic solutions that totally ignore that delicate balance of supply and demand, of costs and utility. These medicines of a charlatan, as he called them, they might look good on the surface, but they risk causing real, lasting decay. So he leaves us with this question that really echoes his entire life's work. How do we balance our urgent desire to do good with the patient, careful understanding needed to build something that actually lasts?